All right. Welcome everyone out there in YouTube land. Jason here, KM6FAK. This is our monthly club meeting here. The club is called the Vaca Valley Radio Club here in Solano County. We, for the most part, meet local here in Vacaville, local to me. There is, I think, maybe 2 or 3 clubs in Solano County. But anyways, we haven't been able to meet in a while, so we're going to do another virtual one here. So that's about to kick off. I'm going to line up the audio on YouTube with everyone here in the Zoom meeting. So feel free to sit back, enjoy, and ask some questions in the chat.
Shortage of money lately. Don't have enough to do everything I want to do.
All right, Kevin, you are live
now.
So don't say anything incriminating.
We are.
Hey, I like to be punctual. You know, when I was in the Air Force, they told me if I was on time, I'm late.
Just hanging out. So I see Brian's here. Cool. And I don't see Doug here. And Frank's not going to be here. But he said he's changed his schedule where Frank said he will, I should push this button. Frank said he will be available the second Tuesday of each Thursday of each month now, from now on.
Oh, good. Yeah, I haven't seen Frank in a while. We miss him.
Your mic's muted, Jason.
Oh, you're right. People on YouTube can hear me. There we go. I'm back.
You're back.
That's good. I haven't seen Frank in a while. We miss him. Yeah,
he's been really busy, and he's got a commitment that came up that he's had on Thursday nights, but he got it changed. So after tonight, he can hang out with us. so he won't be here tonight. So this coming Tuesday night at 7:00. I don't know how they do it, but the Benicia Club, they're having an online Zoom meeting, and we're gonna do some real surface level stuff. The difference, you could buy the MFJ, you could buy the Rig Expert, and we're gonna do a couple experiments with and we've done it, but we're gonna revisit the Nano VNA because that's what they want to do. They want to know how to measure a balun.
So there's 3 clubs in Solano County, right? Is that right?
Well, there's us. Us. Well, 4.
4.
Us, Vallejo.
Yep.
Benicia, and Jerry, the Solano County Amateur Radio something.
Does he have 4 members?
Pardon me?
Doesn't it take 4 people?
Me, myself, and I don't know.
I was reading League of Rules a couple months back.
I don't know.
Well, very cool. So 3 major clubs. Sounds good.
Three major
and a contest. It's a contest club with a contest call.
Yeah, that's what it is. But he has they sponsor the twice a year VE session, which that'd be cool when we can do that.
At some point they should, he should just come over and cross the streams.
I've invited him.
Because he's got a lot of knowledge on contesting and giving out exams and testing. And
he does, man. He really does.
And we're pretty good at getting dancing monkeys to be entertaining.
Yep. That's right. We are.
Although I'm about to mute you if you keep handling your microphone.
Wait a minute. I'm doing what, I'm an audio guy. Hello.
All right. Well, as people join us, let's do in a minute. Let's kick it off. Okay.
All right.
We're filling up the room now. I've got a few people we're bringing in.
Cool.
And what are you going to be talking about tonight, Kevin? Why don't you give us an overview?
Wow. We have quite a few people in the room. Well, tonight is our regular scheduled monthly meeting, this second Thursday, and we're going to open up and we're going to ask Brian to do a quick overview of our reports, which he sent to me, and I read them, and they actually look pretty dang good, Brian. Thank you. And we're going to check in with the Bry guy there in the orange shirt and see if he has anything for us. And we're probably going to, if Don gets his mojo going there, and we can see him and stuff when he comes up, Don to share a little bit about what he did. Oh, well, let me finish my comment about Don. He got it going. He's been participating with CART, and they've actually got deployed at least once or twice, and I know he went once. So I'm going to ask him to give us a little insight on what those guys did with the fires, because that was really great. And Mr. Doug, KK6LDS, and we're going to ask him if he has anything to add. He's our well, we're going to, when we officially start, Doug, we're going to ask you anyways, okay? And then the topic tonight is if you were listening to music, it'd be a remix of what we've already done. We're going to just have a quick topic about wire antennas, and we're just going to talk about why you use the 468 number and where did that other number come from, the 492. And we're going to talk a little bit about the feed line and just go over that. And then we're going to just kind of open it up as even as we're doing it to people that have questions and guys that have offer some input. Like, I made this cool wire antenna and I love it, and we're going to say why. And can you just share it with us? So tonight is HF wire antenna basics review. So that's what we're talking about. So I'm hoping that some folks out in looking here, we already have 21 people out there in good old YouTube land.
And also, Bob Hawkins in the chat reminded us Rio Vista is still a part of Solano County, and they have trilogy.
Yes, and they meet on. You are exactly right. Thank you, Bob. Well, if Bob is commenting, why isn't he here?
Maybe
Bob,
he's laying in bed.
He needs to wake up. He's our Solano County radio officer. We miss him.
And another piece of news too, kind of tragedy. I saw some photos on Facebook, but Dale, he's in the chat as Ramble Lance there. He lost his ambulance. I don't know if you remember. He had an old decommissioned ambulance he built up and had it real tricked out as far as a camper / ham radio base unit. And at 1 a.m., it just burst into flames, and it's a total loss at this point. Yeah.
Does he? I'd be interested in understanding if he knows what happened.
Well, he's here in chat. Maybe he will drop that in there. But I'll have to maybe in a little bit I can bring up some pictures. But yeah, just imagine an ambulance with a lot of cool radio gear and custom stuff, all charred. Man. So that's. Well,
we want to officially start now because Bob Hawkins is here. We can start.
So yeah, he is unsure of what went down.
Okay.
Maybe wiring, some kind of electrical. Something started. Man,
that's sad. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, big time.
It was such a cool thing. All right. Well, let's at looks like 7:08. Let's go ahead and officially start, and we'll let people keep joining as they remember that it's Thursday night, a meeting night, and then they remember, oh my goodness, it's on YouTube and Zoom. And you know what we might want to do? We're not on the repeater right now, right?
No.
Let's do this. Can you key the repeater and let's just make an announcement what we're doing, and if anybody just forgot, maybe they'll hear it and turn it on. So, can you do that real quick, Jason, and then we'll get right into it.
Alrighty, the repeater is keyed.
All right, the repeater is key. Tonight is the second Thursday evening of the month, and the Vacaville Radio Club meeting is taking place on Zoom and YouTube right now as I speak. So if you go to Ham Radio TV, you can check us out there on Ham Radio TV on YouTube. And if you go to the YouTube, you can find is a link on YouTube. I didn't even look.
It is. Yeah, YouTube search Ham Radio TV. You'll find the meeting there live, and if you are a member, you should have an email for a Zoom link if you'd like to come join us.
All right, so this is the official Vacaville Radio Club for the W6VVR repeater system, reminding all of you that are listening but forgot, tonight is the meeting night, and you're absolutely welcome. Members and visitors, you do not have to be a member of our radio club to attend our radio club members, whether they are live in person or almost as good on Zoom and YouTube, maybe even better. Anyways, thanks, Jason. N6VLF.
Along with KM6FAK. Repeater, back to normal.
That was cool. Okay, so now we're going to officially start the meeting. Let's do our Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get right into we're going to have a little bit of business and a couple announcements, but other than that, we're going to get right into it. All right, guys, let's get ready. Ready, go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. That's cool. Thanks for the flag, Jason. That was great.
Yeah, I'm glad that worked.
You know what? I normally don't do this, but it's just tonight. I'm just going to say it. That was a great flag, and I'm really happy we live in this country. And what I'm going to ask everybody to do, whatever you do, whoever you are, whatever your mindset is, go vote. Go vote. Just vote. We're not going to tell you. We're not going to give you any advice or anything, but ask you to go vote. That's it. Go vote. So anyways, with that, let's get right into our meeting. I think tonight would be great. Would it be okay, KB0A, if we start with you and we just chat a moment about our what's going on?
That's fine. Actually, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Host disabled.
I got it. Should try it again.
Okay. Hang on.
I couldn't move fast enough.
Jason charges me for that.
Okay. This is our monthly, actually our annual report, where we stand. And as you can see, doesn't really tell you much. It just basically lists the different accounts and money that came in. If I look at the other page, which there it is. This one actually is more telling. This one actually shows us what we brought forward for 2019, what we received, and basically it categorizes. So far this year, we've received $1,456 in membership dues. That total out $5,869 is actually dues, is actually fees that we pay PayPal. So that's what that is. But we've also received repeater fees or repeater donations, $555 in repeater donations. Wow. Thank you all very much. And we've also have WP is what we pay for the web page. Let's see. We also have Field Day, and we spent $703.70 on Field Day. And then there's a bunch of miscellaneous on there, and I'd have to go back and look on what those specifically are. But we do have those items. Some of them are at club meetings, paying for the food and the coffee that is brought. There's also some other miscellaneous, but they're all categorized on the spreadsheet in a lot more detail. So if anybody's interested, let me know, and I'd be more than happy to walk through it. We also have name badges. That's what we've paid so far this year, $488.40 for member badges, new members. And what we've done now is, instead of having them sent to each individual member, they actually come to me, and then I give them out at meetings. Because we haven't had face-to-face meetings in a while, I got a whole stack of them. So I've actually been considering sticking them in envelopes and mailing them out. So I may do that within the next couple of weeks, just to get them out of me and get them into your hands. And then when you come to the meeting, we'll give you a lanyard so you can wear it around your neck. Let's see, what else? Office supplies, prize fund. Let's see, we had prizes, didn't we, at something?
Yeah, the prize was we gave away a Nano VNA and Heil headset, didn't we?
Yeah, that was last Christmas, and you didn't get the money back until January, so it didn't show up in the log until this year.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and the other thing is that's about it. You can see we don't have a lot of activity, but as of right now, we have about just under $5,000 in the account, and the money comes into PayPal when you guys join. And what I do is I move that over into our FNB, which is First National Bank out of Dixon, into that account. It's really nice now because when I get your checks in the mail, I have a branch right near me, but I can just actually do it with my phone on their mobile account and just send the money in. So, or actually deposit the check and not have to even go to the branch. So that's about all I have. Anybody have any questions?
What's our current member count, Brian? Do you know?
I was just looking that up. Give me a few minutes. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. And another thing I'll give everyone, if you're out there watching us on YouTube and you're not familiar, w6vvr.net. Again, w6vvr.net is our website. Probably the best way to get in touch with us. You have Brian's email right there. And we do have some social media, but it's not terribly active. We have a very connected repeater, so you can find us there. And we're probably somewhere at 80-some members, so it's something else.
Along the lines of the finances, I guess I don't know what the real rules are, but I want to ask Brian and Doug and KB08 Brian, also BXP Brian, and Doug and our whatever officers are here and whatever board members are here, is what I'd like to find out, if it'd be okay with you guys if we spent between I don't think it'll even be $200, but it could be. What we want to do is, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. I mentioned to you the other night, we're going to be upgrading some of the All-Star stuff. And to do that, we need a little bit of money. We're going to be buying a hot rodded a Pi Star with the proper connections it'll run off 12 volts and have backup power, and a couple other small things. And we're going to be setting it up to where that it can be run the way it is now. And we're also be getting the components so that it can eventually be tied directly to the repeater instead of we're using a link radio right now, which works great, but eventually we're going to take it up there. So the bottom line is pretty much everything has been donated to the club, but now we're to the point where, okay, we need to buy a couple things. So I guess what I'm asking I am asking, can we put a cap, of, let's say, between $200 and $300 to buy parts to glue everything together that we have at the moment and try and make this thing a little bit better?
Well, we got $555 this year so far in the repeater donation fund. So
now do we I thought we took, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we took the repeater donated money and we donated that to the site owner to help offset for the main or portion of it anyways, to help offset for the electricity and the site maintenance and that kind of a thing.
Well, nobody told me that.
Oh, that's what, you know what? Maybe we never talked about it.
That might have not been written down.
That might not have been written down. And by the way, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But it's not a problem. So, we'll deal with that later. But are we okay with spending a little bit of our money to help with this advanced communication thing we got going? Because the bottom line, guys, is we got to get a robust node built, installed with all the proper software, because Mike the Geek is going to be moving in 8 months out of state.
Boo.
Is he even here yet?
He's in YouTube.
He's in YouTube. Well, tell him to get in Zoom. Anyways, I texted him. I said, "Where you at, dude?" Anyways, so he's going to be retiring and moving on. So he's going to take some of the equipment that is his personal items with him, which, by the way, he's letting us use now. Because if you go on the air or go look it up, you'll see the W6 VVR node, and you'll see the WG5EEK node as well, and they're tied together. So what we're going to do is we're going to hot rod the W6 VVR node with all the same stuff that Mike's node has, and then we're going to tie it to a dedicated radio, and we're going to install it at a location that a robust location, and then we're going to put it up into the repeater site eventually. Which, by the way, hey, that's a cool thing there. That's who's connected to us right now. So what do we got going there? It looks like we got the VVR, we got Fort Worth, Texas, we got a bunch of guys.
Yeah. Couple people looking for action on the repeater.
So it's really, really been cool. So I guess this is as good a time as any to let everybody know that's on YouTube, that's part of our club or would like to be part of the club. We are encouraging individuals to become part of our tech support team. And what that means is it's people that would be willing to possibly host a device at their home if we need to. And if that doesn't need to be done, people that are willing to take the time to learn the codes and help the upkeep, because this equipment we have, we're able to log, like when Mike and I are staring at the other screen, like one right over here, we can see all the connections, who's there, who's not, and we have the secret squirrel stuff to get into the back door, and we can like turn things off and on. So those are the kind of people we're looking for. Somebody who is interested in helping be on our VVR, All-Star, DMR, Echolink team, because occasionally, for no apparent reason, these things just explode, and you got to go online and you got to go in there and you got to do something. So, and now just with that in mind, even though Mike is going to ditch us and we really hate him for it, but we understand he's moving. He's got to do it. He is still going to be part of our club. He'll still help us be a part of our tech support. We will be online, and just as an example, I was online in Fort Worth, Texas, and he was here, and between the two of us, we resurrected the Fort Worth node because it had a whole bunch of problems. So, because in many instances, you need a body at the node that knows a little bit, and then you need the smart guy like Mike on the other end that's logged in helping you with it. So, with that said, anybody who's interested in it, it's got got to be a little bit computer savvy, and be willing to spend a little bit of time, and be willing to get the phone call occasionally. Hey, can you go online and fix this or figure this out? Because we need some help. So if you're that person, let us know. We'd certainly like to know. So with all that, can we spend a couple $100 to make things better?
I will make a motion that the group there can spend up to $300 on the equipment they need.
Second.
Anybody else?
Third.
That
Make it happen.
That sounds
All
good.
right. Sounds
Art
good.
Miller
So,
said yes.
okay.
We might have to put an injunction for more at a later time, but
Yeah. I at the moment,
No.
that's plenty.
yeah.
Thank you guys. So I guess
Question-
what we're going to do, go ahead, and go ahead, Don.
I'd love to learn more about how All-Star, DMR, and those systems work. And I even maybe make a little node here for myself and use in my car wherever when I'm traveling with the GPS connections and all that stuff. I think it'd be great if we could have a workshop. And it sounds like you and Mike and maybe there's some other folks that are experts at this could have a little workshop. Maybe we could build little nodes using the Raspberry Pis or whatever and learn how to do this stuff. So we could contribute in helping when something goes down.
Okay.
Right now, it's all Greek to me.
Well, that's a great idea, and I think what we will do is we'll make a suggested list of what you should buy: the Raspberry Pi, the USB interface, the cables, and all the jazz that you need to do it. Now, and then you'll have to ask. We'll get into this more detail later. Are you gonna have a radioless node, or are you gonna use it, hook it to a particular radio? What is it you want to do with this thing? So we'll get together, have a Zoom meeting or something, and we'll get that figured out, get the list out to you. Then once everybody has their stuff, then we probably will have to get together and, wear a mask or whatever we got to do and set it up to where that Mike and I are like there, and you can learn how to make your image, learn how to transfer your image over to the little chip, put the chip in your Pi, bring your Pi up. It's the stuff that everybody says, man, that's so easy. Just go on YouTube and look. It's really easy. Well, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. I mean, if you're computer savvy and you got a knack for it, yeah, it's easy. And Mike has found a bunch of stuff that he and I could not find documented very easily on the internet. So, Don, that's a great idea. So we'll put together a list of some basic stuff, and then we'll go from there. Thank you guys for letting us spend couple $100 to improve our stuff, because at this point, everything's been donated at this point. I mean, we've got a lot of great people that just gave us equipment, so it was really nice. So Brian, and then Brian, BXP, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yes, I do. Actually, I received an email through the other Brian, but relayed over to me. Bill, AA6DB with the Sonoma County Radio Amateurs, lost their fusion repeater in the glass fire. So they have asked our permission to use our W6 VVR room to go ahead. Of course, my response, of course, go ahead and use it. So you might see here some activity if someone happens to wander over to 147.945. Now you know where that activity is coming on. If you can get into the repeater, cool. Of course, I'll promote to use it, and hopefully we'll be able to pack that thing up and send it up the hill at the same time we take care of the other items that need to go up there on top of the hill.
They're not using our repeater. They're just using our room. They have a repeater from Sonoma Emergency Managed Services.
Yeah, well, when they do use the room, it will transmit out.
Come out of the repeater.
Oh, okay.
I've heard that traffic. I often wondered what I was listening to.
Yeah, so that's what it is. So basically, when someone's using the VVR room, it's going in and out on there. So here, us on the locals, we can just basically grab the radio, flip over to fusion mode, and talk away.
So we'll be able to use that frequency. And where are they located? In Napa?
Sonoma.
Currently right now, we haven't been over there. Both myself and Kevin basically been burning the candle on three ends. So we haven't made any changes to the repeater and the aspects of changing the frequency into our new and improved pair. Yes, it does conflict with that repeater that's over in Copperlopolis. I can hear them loud and clear over here at my house, unfortunately.
Cool. Well, great, guys. Doug, do you have anything? Do you want to offer? You got anything for us tonight? I told you I was going to ask you anyways.
Not that I can think of. If anybody knows of any other information that I'd like included in the weekly email, let me know, because I'll be happy to do that, because I'm as absent-minded as anybody else. So the more reminders, the better.
But you do it. You do a good job. Thank you.
And other than that, I think the vice president's office is good. I don't have to do any debates or anything. So
Cool.
I don't even see a fly on your head, Doug.
Yeah. We're not. No flies, and we're not going to debate you. All right. I did want to bring it around one more time to Don, CAM6INR. Don has recently got really active in some volunteer radio communication, and along with Bob Hawkins and KM6BXZ. And I want to just have Don, if you could just take a moment, and can you share with us what your experience was? I think, did you go out with CART last week or something?
Yes, I went out on Saturday afternoon, spent the whole afternoon, probably got home around 7 or so. And Bob was there working as well, and he also was doing dispatch at the command center, and did an excellent job, by the way. He was very good communicating with Bob. What I did was I was the mobile communications for. We had various teams. I was on team 2, and I followed the team truck that had the folks that would go to these homes that were evacuated, and they had work orders to help feed animals, and in some cases rescue animals at those homes. And they primarily were feeding chickens. And I heard on the radio some guys found some injured cats. They coordinated to get them over to a vet. And some of it was after hours, so the command center was helping. It was very interesting. And of course, it's very sad to see what the fires do. It was also very interesting to see that I think the firemen did an excellent job. As I was driving down some of the roads, they looked like they did some kind of backfire to stop the fire from going up and hitting a lot of the trees in the hills. And I think they saved a lot of the trees by the way I don't know how they did it, but by the way they controlled the fire. I did drive by the hospital, and I worked in Angwin, and there was a hospital on Deer Park that I think burned down, and that was not a happy sight to see. But we were driving along, and with the radio, we got diverted to help. There was some animals at a school. We stopped at a school as well, and excuse me. We stopped at a school as well and helped over there. So it was a very enjoyable experience. And oh, by the way, they had so much food at the base station. I probably could have gained 20 pounds if I had eaten it all. It was all good quality food.
There was food? Oh, okay.
Oh, my God. The burgers that they had there were incredible. And they had some other food, some ravioli or pasta of some kind. There was no shortage of food.
Very good.
So it was a very enjoyable, fulfilling event. I saw some of the other guys at OES and gals working there as well. And they had a dispatch center. They had a big board where they kept track of all the work orders. They had somebody working the dispatch. I worked it a little bit in dispatch too, and that was interesting as well on the air.
Well, very good, Don. Thank you for sharing your experience. And now, now that Bob, KM6BXZ, I saw you lurking about there on the Zoom. So, Bob, could you just give us a little bit of input from your perspective, and maybe share with our group here the opportunity that's available to the ham radio community to help either with the CART or through OES with the ACS, and just give us basically come on screen, give us a brief plug and your perspective.
Sure. So Don really did a great job describing what happens. Every team that
Wait a minute, hold on a second. I want to tell everybody something. I forgot. Bob Hawkins is the Solano County Amateur Radio Officer. Okay?
if you're really
Yeah. I mean, the dude, he's our boss. Okay.
that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So
Okay. So, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Don did a good job describing every team that went out to service an animal call, either feeding chickens, feeding cats, had a ham radio operator, and that's part of the arrangement that Napa County requires Napa CART to have communication with the team at all times. So they have a net control station at the Napa Valley Horsemen Association, and everybody that goes out is in radio contact. So they call us when they leave, they call us when they get to their location, and they call us when they get back. So really having Don come over was a big help. The teams got dispatched or activated on September 27th. They've been going for 2 weeks. Tomorrow's going to be the last day. I spent most of today over there. It's a pretty, they get pretty tired doing that day after day after day. So the opportunity for ham radio operators is to either work as a communicator for a team, there's some of those sheep, or to work in net control and help do the comms. And, I think last week what they found out is that when they go on these multiple day assignments, they really need as much help as they can get. So they started reaching out last Wednesday to folks on the ACS list. That's how Don came over. And they picked up quite a few people out of the North Bay, the Vallejo Club, who are also part of the Solano ACS. So people have been working some pretty good hours, some pretty good food, as Don mentioned. But I think they've been taking care of over 400 animals. So pretty big job.
And as you folks can see on the screen, thank you, Jason. It's there's the dispatching, going out in the vehicle, being the communications for the CART people, and there's technical stuff. You notice there, guys, that we're setting up ham radios and antennas and battery packs and solar panels, and sometimes I've only participated very briefly twice, and both times, I don't know anything about the animal rescue, but what I was able to offer was I literally just programmed 2 or 3 handhelds. That was it. That was what I did.
Oh, and having you come over that day we're out at the church was really helpful.
Yeah,
because a lot of the hams are new. They've got their tech license. They haven't had a lot of field experience, so it's really helpful to have experienced hams. Yeah.
So if you are available, let me just put it this way: check with Bob and find out what you can do to get your feet wet in the amateur radio volunteer circle, because there's 2 or 3 things going on, and Bob's pretty much involved with all of them. So, Bob, thanks for doing that. Thanks for sharing with us, and thanks for making yourself so available so often.
Well, thanks for giving us the chance to talk about it, and Don, thanks for coming out and helping.
And I believe a couple weeks ago we talked about 14 is the minimum age. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're looking at the. No, I think Solano CART said 18, but for the sheriff's office, there's a cadet program.
Okay.
And I talked to Vicky about minimum age.
Because my thought was, if you have like some kids at home, you could get them signed up, do the proper paperwork, and I mean, how fun would it be to herd some llama here?
Yeah, I think Solano CART. So there's a real opportunity with Solano CART, and we have 4 people in the club that are part of that. We've got Jackie, Evan, Vicky, and myself. that's really, we can use more ham operators. There's no question. So there's really an opportunity to do that. And you don't, like Kevin says, you don't need to know anything about animals. Although you can't help but learn when you're working with some of the folks in that group. They're so knowledgeable. They even had me feeding horses, helping try to load a horse a couple days ago, wrangling chickens, trying to catch a cat today.
Helping load horses gives you, I did it once, and it really gave me a perspective of how strong that animal is.
Oh, man.
I am
like
nothing.
It's like an 1,100-pound teenager.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And, for somebody like me with very little, horse skills anyway, they're not going to get me in trouble. They're just going to have me help.
Right.
And so there's lots of opportunity. It's very rewarding. It's a great service for the community. These people are, some of the houses that we were feeding cats, the houses were burned down. It's pretty tough. So anything we can do to help is pretty good.
Very good. Thank you very much, Bob. We appreciate you and all your efforts. So, you know what? I think do we hit all of our officers that have anything to offer? If I missed an officer or a board member that has something to offer tonight, I apologize. And this is your opportunity to speak up, because I might have missed you, because we are making some of this up as we go along.
That's what I think of you, Kevin.
Thank you. Look, I helped load a horse once, and the person said, hold this rope, and if he pulls too hard, let go, because you won't be able to do anything. I went, okay. So anyways, well, if we have no takers, is there anybody that has something at this point they'd like to offer or share with the club before we move on?
I have one other thing, Kevin, if I may.
Absolutely. Don, go ahead.
I'm really enjoying the experience with MARS, the Military Auxiliary Radio System. Right now, there's a big communications exercise nationwide, and we're also going to head up into Canada and do some work with the Canadian group as well. And some of the things that we do are and they require only radios. You can't use the internet. You can't use telephone. Anything you report in this exercise has to be with radio. So, for example, I discovered I could receive the automatic terminal information service on VHF at Napa from my house. It was surprised, not all the time. Sometimes it's too noisy, but I was able to receive it on my VHF 8900R. And then what I would do is I would type that into a template, the weather information and any remarks, and I would broadcast that when it was my turn on the net through a data transmission, HF data transmission. We also do things called sweats, where we look at local road closures, a dam break, or any kind of physical emergency that might be going on in the area, and we have a system of reporting those kinds of things. Last night there was someone else that reported some information on solar activity. So it's a very interesting exercise, and I guess the idea of it all is that we keep, and it's all through the Department of Defense, we keep them informed when there's an emergency of what the physical conditions are in our area. Without going any more detail, there's a lot more to it. Anybody that's interested, I'm actually a member of the Travis Space Support Team now. I finished my training, got a full call sign now active, and I'm having a good time as a good bunch of guys. So I would encourage you, if you want to volunteer for your country, this is a really good way to do it through amateur radio.
Thank you, Don. That was much appreciated. Anybody else? Because if nobody else has anything, we're going to move on to our our topic tonight, and we're going to make this kind of a open discussion kind of a thing. I'm going to start it, and anybody that's on Zoom, just say, hey, I have a question or I have a comment. And if you're on YouTube, you do your comment on YouTube, and maybe I don't know. I know Jason's trying to keep an eye out, but maybe one of the other fellows can keep an eye out too, see if there's a question pop up or something, because I will not be looking at it. So anyways, nothing else. I think we're going to just move on. Is that okay with you guys?
Teach us something, Kevin.
Pardon me?
Teach us something.
Well, this is going to be this is going to be a basic review. So tonight we're just going to talk about wire antennas, specifically for HF use, because recently there's been a lot of interest in, checking my antenna with my Nano VA, checking my antenna with my MFJ or Rig Expert or whatever you happen to have. And I think some of the biggest questions we've had recently is about the numbers that we were saying that, hey, you need to use this number for this and this number for that, and got a little bit of confusion. So what I'm going to do is go over that right now. So I'm going to push this button. So can you guys see this right here? Oh yeah, I guess you can. All right. So we're going to be talking about a half wavelength HF antenna. Okay. And here's the diagram of a typical half wavelength antenna. Okay. And what the question has been asked several times, and we're going to review it tonight, is megahertz. Okay. So I'm just going to go 468, divide that by 3.8. And that comes out to be 123.157 feet, which is way too far past the decimal. We don't really need that. So now we have 123 feet. So maybe for that frequency, what we might do is make a little bit longer, so that we can have something to work with. Because you can always make it shorter by folding it back on itself, but it's a little difficult to make it longer. So if we look at this diagram here, we'll transfer the 123 feet, but let's just say for our building purposes, let's do this. Let's add 2 feet to it, and I'll tell you why in a second. So we're going to go 123, and we're going to add 2 feet. So let's make it, for our building purposes, 125 feet. Okay? So, but for building purposes, what were we going to do? We're going to take that 125 feet, and we're going to go 125, and we're going to divide it by 2. And the reason we're going to divide it by 2 is from this part, its center feed point to the end of the insulator, that's approximately a quarter wavelength. That's half of a half wavelength. So we're going to take the 125 and divide it by 2. And now we're coming up with 62.5 feet. So now this is 62.5 and this is 62.5, but it's really not, because we added 2 feet to it, because we're going to run this up. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but here I'll make it bigger. This is my goofy looking, it's a square insulator, and this piece here is my guy wire, and I'll put guy right there. And what I used for this insulator, because I'm an entry-level ham operator and I don't have any money, or I just didn't want to spend any money, I used a piece of 3/4 inch PVC pipe. because I'm cheap. And by the way, that's what I have on mine right now on my big 80 meter dipole, and I run a kilowatt into it, and it's been up there for years and years. So that's what I did. And then I drilled a hole here on the other side, and I ran the wire through it. And here comes that extra, you got about a foot extra on each side. So I got about 6 or 8 inches there. And I brought it up to my center insulator, my feed point right here. And typically that's some kind of a hook. So we'll draw that on this side, that we have a device that has a stainless steel hook coming off of it, off each side, and then something to bring my guy wire down so I could pull my antenna up. So I'm going to bring that wire, the other end of it, and it's going to go into my feed point, and I'm going to wrap it around, and that's going to be, 2 or 3 inches, and I'm going to solder this one, and I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Now here's where I want to be reasonably clear. The excess of the wire I want on my insulator end on both sides. And up here on the feed point, we're just going to put feed right here, where we're feeding it with our ballon, which we'll talk about in a minute. I run it up to that piece of stainless steel, and I wrap it around it, and then I connect the wire from my ballon directly to that. And you want the wires from your ballon to here as close as you can get them and equal in length. And then you want to take from this point to the insulator and this point to this insulator, and to the best of your ability, make them equal lengths, the same. So now we've got it where I took my 468 divided by the frequency. I came up with 123 feet, but it's pretty obvious I added a little bit of extra, 125, to give myself some space so I can adjust it at the insulator ends, here and here. And you do the same thing with your guy wire. So you can loosen your insulator and physically move it in and out. And most likely, because we're shooting for 33.8, we may have to shorten it a little bit. So now we've got our half wavelength antenna. We've got it approximately the right length, and we've wrapped the wire through this hole around itself. Same thing over here. And I get this question asked all the time. Do I need to use solid wire? Do I need to use stranded wire? Do I need to use insulated wire or non-insulated wire? Use any of them. Use what you get your hands on. And they ask how thick. Well, the thicker, typically the heavier. And if it's insulated, it's even heavier. So use what you can get your hands on that you can get pulled up in the air at a reasonable height, and it doesn't bother your neighbors. So a very common wire is the electrical wire. It's a THHN. You can use that if you like, and it's stranded, and it's also comes in solid. And when you solder, go back to this picture, when you solder it here and here, down here, you're just wrapping it around itself, and you're doing your best to make it as equal as you possibly can. Okay. And I never, for my antennas, I never solder this end here. Never. What I'll do is if I have an insulated wire that's stranded and I get this thing set up and I go, oh man, I lucked out. This thing is dead on. I just get 2 or 3 UV resistant nylon ties, and I wrapped it around. I just put a couple of nylon ties on each end to keep the wrap from getting loose. That way it holds the integrity of the connection. It's a mechanical connection to keep this thing from slipping. and I haven't had a problem with it. And you can do whatever you want to do that. You can even loop, once you get the right distance, you can even loop the tail through the insulator twice if you need to. But I typically use some 3/4 inch PVC pipe, drill a hole, and then I run it through, and then I wrap it over, and I just put a nylon tie on there.
The
So
white
now we've
stuff.
got-
You use
Go
the
ahead.
white. You use the white stuff, Kevin. When
What's
you say PVC pipe, you're using the white
I
stuff.
use the dumb old white stuff.
Because
the
we experimented the one time, and I also heard others talking about when you grab some of the gray, it has traces of chlorine and whatnot. That might not be your best friend.
Yeah, I've never used a gray.
Yeah, it's the white.
I only use stuff that's good for drinking water. That's it.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And the reason the reason I used the white is because I had it, and I didn't have any of the gray stuff, so I never even tried the gray. So now you got your basic antenna set up here, and now you're ready to hook your feed line to it. Well, a couple of ways you could do it. You could skip this balun if you chose to, and you could, if you guys can see this picture here, you could bring your coax up to here, and you could take your center conductor, hook it there, and you could bring your shield and hook it there, and just clean this up so it doesn't get any water in it. Now you've got an antenna that doesn't have a balun on it, and I have done that. And people tell you to take it now, and I'm going to guess you wrap that cable neatly, and I'm not going to draw the coax. Not very good pictorial here. I'm not an artist. So you draw it and you make it even, do 6-8 turns and kind of make a version of an ugly balun or a choke. I'm not going to go into gory detail about that tonight, but the bottom line is this. You don't know what frequency that choke is choking. You just guessed. So if we put this on your analyzer and you check it, you don't know if it's rejecting 3 megahertz, 5 megahertz. I don't know exactly, but guys you can look it up and you can get the average. They say take a coffee can and wind your coax around it and make it nice and flat, put 5 or 6 turns, and then you use some tape or something or non-conductive material to hold its form. You can do that. And if your cable length is right, your antenna is far enough away from your house, it works. But we're going to talk about taking the steps and the effort to go the extra mile. So what I would suggest yes.
Quick comment.
Go ahead.
No matter how hard you try to make both sides even, there's going to be trees closer to one side than the other, the house closer to one side.
Oh yeah.
Whatever it is going to make it unbalanced, and that's why you need the balun there.
That's right. And on that note, I've had situations with people exactly what Ed said. The feed point is here, and then they ran this out wire, and there was something in the way, so they just took an insulator with a hole in it, right? And then this went to something that was in the way, probably a building or a tree, and then let the wire skew off at another angle, which that'll work too. But what Ed is saying will happen to you. It will. So
how close does that coil of feed line, how close should it be to the connection to the dipole?
as physically close as you can get it. But I don't want you. I would not recommend this. It's my personal preference not to do this. I wish I had said, we weren't going to go into talking about balance and stuff in great detail, but if you can, put a balun here. And MFJ makes a balun, and a whole bunch of companies make different types of baluns, and we can talk more about that. But the balun goes from your balanced antenna to the unbalanced cable, and this would be a 1-to-1 current balun. Okay? And they're made by several different companies, and you can buy them ready-made that have the wires ready to hook to here, and they already have right here, there'll be an SO239 receptacle so that your cable will plug right into it. That is the easiest way. And MFJ makes one that's pretty good. I can't remember the part number off the top of my head, but we can go over that later. The most important thing is you get a decent balun. And there's a lot of different baluns out there to choose from. That's it. That balun for, what is it, $43.99? We have tested it, we've measured it, and it actually has really good balancing characteristics. We'll show you how to do that. There's a little test you can do with your MFJ, and it'll show you how good the thing will help balance out your load. And it also, now when you get into some of these other ones, I haven't tested, like the Jetstream, I haven't tested, so I don't have any comments on that. The bottom line is you also want what's called a good, and we'll write this down, a good CMMR. It's called, you want it to be good. That's called common mode rejection ratio. All that's doing is this balun, if it's made right, not only will it go from unbalanced to balanced, if it has good common mode, it rejects, it resists, it cancels the energy that gets off these wires and tries to come back down your shield, okay, and bring that RF right into your shack and do goofy stuff, get into your radio, get into your audio, mess up the touch lamp on your wife's dining room table, all that goofy stuff. So not putting a balun here, you're asking for trouble, especially if you got an imbalance out here or something. And so in addition to that, not all baluns are created equal. So the one Jason showed you from MFJ is a decent one, and we can also, there's several ones. Not all baluns are created equal. Somebody's got their YouTube unmuted. From MFJ is a decent one, and we can also, there's several. You're muted, Jason. You're still muted.
My volume's down. All right, Kevin, you got it.
Yeah, I just wanted to, okay. So anyways, not all baluns are created equal. You want a good common mode, and there's several companies that make nice baluns, and they're typically built on the toroidal cores, and they're wound with the Teflon and high temperature wire. And there's one, okay, that one there, who makes that one for $17?
What I brought up is the Palomar Engineers website. It is a phenomenal website with all sorts of ferrites and toroids, as well as baluns. And you can see these baluns they're selling. They are higher priced, but they're showing you a lot more as far as what they've tested and what kind of ratings they have. I mean, they're talking some major power, 5,000 watts and very broad band.
Now, let me just say this. for about $15, you can build a balun that will handle a kilowatt of sideband on all your resident antennas. You can wind it yourself, put it in that little box. You buy the box from Home Depot, and you put it in there, or you can make it like that right there, very similar to that. And we can show you different ways to make baluns. But putting a balun right here, is a really good thing to do. So try to get your wires as equal as you can to start out with. Consider putting a balun in here because it's very useful. What Ed suggested is super correct. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that happen. So now I think we understand 468 divided by the frequency, get the length, add about a foot per side. So you got some waste to work with. And then we're going to put a balun on it. And now, last but not least, we want to put a piece of coax on here. I get asked weekly, what coax should I use? And I think the best answer is the best coax you can afford or the best coax you can get your friend to give you. And what I mean by that is the better coax will give you better results. So with that, let's just talk a little bit about the types of coax. Real quick, standard stuff. RG58, they're thin stuff. Don't use it. I just wouldn't use it. RG8X, very, very popular. And we'll talk about that. That would be a little bit of a compromise, but it works. Then a RG8 type cable. RG8 is a generic term. There's many different brands. There's many different makeups of it. There's 213, there's 214, there's LMR 400, and the list goes on. Buy, beg, borrow, the best one. Don't steal it, but buy, beg, or borrow, or get some gifted to you. If you get an RG8, the best you can. So we already eliminated RG58. RG58 is pretty lossy. It's for short runs in your mobile, for putting it in your backpack and climbing up the mountain, that kind of stuff. But if you're going to put this in your home or in your shack and you want to run your cable between 50 and 150 feet, please don't use RG58. Now we move into RG8X. Well, RG8X is a much thicker center conductor. It's a typical, there's two versions of it, a single shield and a double shield. If you're going to buy stuff and make your own stuff, get the double shielded stuff because it's got 100%, I think it's an aluminum field, and then the drain wire or the braided shield, it's only I don't know what the percentage is, but it's certainly not 95. It's much lower. And if you buy the cable that doesn't have the double shield, all you get is the braid. And a lot of times there's not very much braid there. So be cautious when you buy the RG8X of what you're purchasing. So with the RG8X, and we're going to get into this, and I'll show you, we'll start talking a little bit about this. The velocity factor, and that's where this number here comes in. We're going to chat about that in a moment. The RG8X has a reasonably good loss, and I don't have my chart. I'm not going to go into all the different losses. We could do that at another time. I actually passed out a chart and showed everybody you can go online and get a coax loss chart. Bunch of people have it. And RG8X will be on there. LMR 400 will be on there. And 213 will be on there. So look it up and see the big differences. So at the lower frequencies, at 80 meters, the loss is not as critical, but the characteristic of the cable is. So as an example, RG8X, if I get a piece of that and I cut it to 100 feet and that's the exact one I was thinking about right there, actually. Jason, you are awesome. You're reading my mind. That is the one. So if you look on it and you see RG8X at below 10 megahertz, you're going, oh my goodness, it's only 1 dB of loss per 100 feet. You're going, that's pretty good. Then you look over here and go, when I buy 213, it's only 0.6 dB. I'm not getting that much better. You wait way over here to 9913 or 14. I'm only looking at 0.5. That's some expensive stuff there, buddy. But it's less about that with those cables. There's a characteristic of that cable. If you test a piece of RG8X at 100 feet with your analyzer, put a 50 ohm resistor on it, it looks like a roller coaster. There's a whole bunch of peaks and knolls in it. It's just the way the stuff's made. And remember this number, the velocity factor of most RG8X is about 0.8. Okay? So the VF is about 0.8 for RG8X. So you grab that piece of RG8X and you want to do 80 meters. Here's what you would do. You can switch back to my little paper, Jason. So here we go. So 492 is a half wavelength in free space. There's no velocity factor. There's no wire involved in this. Whereas on this side, 468, you'll find this in the ham radio handbook, in the antenna books, all over the place. This takes into consideration the velocity factor of just a single piece of wire. They made it easy for you, because if I wanted to, and I don't no confusion or hate mail here, please. If you wanted to, you could use 492 and then multiply it times the velocity factor of the wire you chose. So, but the average piece of wire is somewhere between 0.91 and 0.92 or something. It's way up there. So the ham radio community, somebody just said 468, and what are we going to do anyways? We're going to add a little bit of length to it because we're going to adjust it and get it right. So I get asked all the time, well, how long should this cable be? Well, I think the answer is more important. How long should it not be? It should not be cut at a quarter wavelength of the frequency that you're going to use it at. So let's take a look at this. People have purchased hundreds of 50-foot lengths of RG8X that has a velocity factor of approximately 0.8. So we want to avoid a quarter wavelength at 80 meters because that will cause problems when we're tuning our antenna. So we will take 492 and we're going to divide that by our frequency 3.8, and we're going to come up with 129.47. So I'm going to call it 129.5 just to make it easy. Okay. Now, what cable do I want to use to get that half wavelength? Well, we're talking about RG8X. So I'm going to multiply that times 0.8. Comes out to be 103.57 feet. 103.57 feet. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if you ordered a piece of 100 foot of RG8X and you hooked it up at this frequency with this antenna and you're calculated as 103 and you got a piece that is 100 feet, that's darn close. It's gonna work pretty good. But what happens a lot of times is I hear and see this all the time. I don't have that much distance, so I bought 50 feet. So let's divide. This is a half wavelength with the proper velocity factor for this cable. So we're going to divide that by 2. 51.7, we'll call that 79 feet. Wow. Isn't that awful close to 50 feet? So we're knocking on the door of a quarter wavelength. So if I built my antenna super perfect, I got it really close. I bought the super cool Ballon, and then I went and I put that piece of cable on there and I started measuring it. And then you get the question, how come I can't get my SWR below 1.6 or 1.7? Sometimes it's 2. Well, if you took this piece of cable, put it on your MFJ, this guy right here, your MFJ, and you plugged in that 50-foot piece of RG8X, and then you took your $2 load resistor that we talked about making for testing this right here. That's 2 100 ohm, 1% resistors soldered as close as I could to make a very, very simple 50 ohm measurement load. It's not a dummy load, it's a measurement. And if you put that on the end of that RG8X and you start turning the dial, first off, we need to understand, and I get this question a lot. This is a perfect 50 ohm load. It's a fake antenna at all frequencies from about 1 megahertz to 30 megahertz, just to play with our HF analyzers, Coax, and just to learn with. So if I put this borderline perfect antenna on the end of my 50-foot piece of Coax RG8X, and I tune it to my frequency, which we decided was 3.8, what do you think my reading's going to be? Does anybody know? This is the interactive part, if you know. It's going to be wrong. You're going to look at it and you're going to turn this thing and you're going to look at your meter and you're going to go, man, I can't get a good match. It's like 1.5 or 1.4 or whatever in the lesser quality cable reads even worse. And the better quality RG8X reads a little bit better, but you just accidentally made a quarter wavelength piece of cable transmission line to put on your 80 meter antenna, and right off the bat, your reading's going to be a little bit high. And then, in addition to that, what if your antenna was a little long or a little short for whatever reason? You know, this was a little long or that's a little short, and you put a piece of 50-foot RG8X on there, gives you a disadvantage. Now I get phone calls and emails. Well, gee, my 80 meter antenna, I can't get it below. No matter what I do, I can't get it below 2-1. I've had guys say I can't get it below 3-1 because things were just so bad. So one more thing that could happen to you, you've got your antennas a little bit out of tune. You got a 50-foot piece of RG8X. It's a quarter wavelength that's giving you a little bit of grief. So you add those two together, you got more grief. And now, last but not least, how high is this thing? This is the ground. Off ground. The ground. Okay. You guys can look this up. I didn't make any of this up. Typically, you need to be in the neighborhood of a quarter wavelength off ground, the ground, to get your antenna to start behaving. Because you think about it, you got to have, if you drew a picture of the wave, and here is a half wave, right? Well, you want it to be at least that far off this far off the ground. Excuse me, I just drew that wrong. You want it to be at least that far off the ground. There's your quarter. There's your half. Half is here. There's your quarter. This is just a pictorial. So you want it high enough off the ground so the ground doesn't affect the operation or the tuning of your antenna. Now, all of us can't do that. And by the way, your ground conductivity at your house might be different than the ground conductivity at your friend's house in the next town over, or even across town. And we found this out not because we were trying. 2 years ago, we built this exact antenna with the proper cables, and everything was done textbook. Set it up at my house, and we got about a 1.3, 1.4 SWR. We're like, I guess that's as good as it's going to get. So we took it all apart, and 2 days later, we took it to field day in Vacaville Airport, set up out in that field. Set the same antenna up, same height, same cables, everything, put the antenna liners on it, and went, jaw drop. It's better. We didn't do anything. And we just went, we had an amateur radio antenna epiphany. Maybe the ground conductivity is different there than it is at my house. Because if you come over here to my neighborhood and you go down the street to my neighbor that has an old abandoned well that's cased, and you unscrew the lid, pull it off, shine your flashlight, what do you see? Water at about 13 feet, 12, 13 feet, something like that. Even in July, it was like that. I'll bet you I don't get water, that kind of moisture at the Vacaville Airport at 10 or 12 feet. It's probably deeper. So something was different. I don't know how deep the water is over there. I have no idea. But as an example, the ground conductivity was different. So I said all this to say, I built my cool antenna. I made everything equal. I put my balun in. I got my 50-foot piece of RG8 coax, which is really close to 1/4 wavelength at 3.8, and I hooked it up, and I put my MFJ on there, or my VNA, and went, wow, I just can't get this thing to tune like I'd like it to. I guess I got to use a tuner. Well, the next thing you could do is you could go get yourself a piece of, and by the way, if you, and we'll do this sometime when you all want to do it, if you take that piece of RG8X and look at it on the analyzer, it looks like this. Okay? And every one of these, and this would be a 0 SWR. And this is like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and it just keeps going up. And I probably should make these numbers down. I probably should make this down, but these peaks, okay, that's the 1/4 wavelength peak. So we had one at around 3.8, but there's not one here. So this is a better spot to be. Here's another peak. Here's another peak. These are just at different frequencies. So this is an example of what RG8X might look like. And there's different versions of it. Some are better than others. Then you grab a piece of, do the same thing on your analyzer, and you get a piece of RG8. Let's say it's 213 because we have it. It looks like this. And this is not a very good pictorial. And we're looking at it from 1 megahertz to 30 megahertz. That's how we set our machine up. We just turn the knob. You could do it on your MF. You can do it with this, or you can do it if some of you guys bought the Rig Expert, you can do it with that. Some of you guys bought the Nano VNA. It doesn't matter. Some of you guys got the what is it, the Comet? But this guy here, these aren't very good little humps, but this down here is like 1.2 1.5 or something. I mean, it's like way. I mean, we're talking way down there. So if you just took this 50-foot piece of RG8X out, put a piece of RG8 213 in place, it'll work better. It's still not. You're still going to be on a possibly close to a quarter wavelength, but it'll be better because it's better coax. So the next question I get, okay, so what are we doing if we want to optimize it? Well, if you want to optimize it, you're going to just take this exact formula right here, and we came out with 129 feet, but I'm going to use RG 213, which the velocity factor of that is about 0.68. So now I'm going to just use the same exact formula, and I know that 492 divided by my 3.8, right? There's my 129.5. So I'm going to take that and multiply that times 0.68. And there it is. It's 88 feet. Equals 88 feet. Now, you say, well, I bought a 100-foot piece of coax, but you're telling me it's 88 feet. Well, with the velocity factor of 0.68, yeah, it's 88 feet. Spend a little more money and you get the 400 type stuff. There's the cool thing. So what is RG8X? Oh, there it is. It's 0.82. I said it was 0.8. It's actually a little faster. Makes it worse. You get your antenna cut right, use a ballon, and you cut your feed line to as close as you can to a half wavelength. And then in using the HF, I get this question all the time. Well, what if I want to operate 80 meters and 40 meters? Well, you're going to get in the ballpark cutting your coax. It's not going to be dead on because every time you move frequency, it's going to be different, right? Just like you move off frequency, your antenna is going to be different. So you pick where you want this antenna to operate. We picked 3.8. Well, what we can do is we can pick like how about we said 492 divided by 3.6, and there's a reason for that. Comes up to 136 feet, and what was one of those velocity factors of about times 0.68. We'll go with that. No, I don't want to do that. I want to get a real number. Divided by 3.6. Let's use something good. Let's use the RG8 foam Belden or 9913. It's 8.84. So it says 114 feet. Okay. So we'll take that cable and we're going to say we need 114 feet. So I'm going to write that down. 114 feet. So let's say I did that. Okay. Why did I do that? Well, that 114 feet with that particular cable puts me in the ballpark. And if you do your resistor trick right here, perfect antenna, put it on the end of that cable and start it at 3.5 and sweep it up to 4, you're going to see that your SWR barely moves. It's way down there. It's really, really, really good. And it's as good as you're going to get it. So, well, why'd you pick 3.6? Well, 3.6 times 2 is what? It's 7.2. What's that? That's dead on center of 40 meters.
40 meters.
Yep. So that piece of cable will also give you a really good performance on 40 meters. Well, what if you multiply that times 2? It's 14.4. It's 50 kilohertz above 20 meters. And if you put your tester on there, your cable, and sweep it, you'll find that it's really good. And the only difference between going through all this effort and grabbing a random piece of cable that you don't know what it is that you're giving yourself the opportunity to tune everything into the ballpark as close as you can to give you a better shot at having an antenna that matches well, radiates well, and receives well. And
so that antenna would work pretty darn good at 80, 40, and 20 meters. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying we're talking feed line. That feed line with the particular cable we picked and how we cut it would behave at 80, 40, and 20. Now, you can take off this feed point and you could skew off at another angle, and you could put a 40 meter antenna on there. And then you could skew off at another angle and put a 20 meter antenna on there.
Okay.
And then it would behave.
Will you show us your picture, Kevin, your overhead?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you're drawing additional antennas underneath that roof, right? Let's say the 80 meters is the roof. You're showing, let's say 80s on the outside. Maybe you put 40 on the inside, and then I'm guessing you could also spin it perpendicular, so run it the opposite way. Is that correct? So it doesn't couple.
Right, exactly. The VLF antenna. If you were to look at the 80 meter wire, it follows north-south, okay? Mm-hmm. And then if you looked at the 40 meter wire, it travels east-west pretty much. And if you looked at the 20 meter wire, it's skewed in between those two, and they're at different levels too, okay? So my 80 meter antenna is on the highest poles from the feed point, so it's up as high as I can physically get it. My 40 meter is 90 degrees off, and it's not quite as, the poles aren't quite as high. And then my 20 meter antenna is in between them, and it's at a different level. So when you stand there and look at it, nothing's perfectly parallel. And before the wind, last big giant windstorm destroyed my part of my antenna, my cable is cut for a half wavelength at 80 meters, and it works beautiful on 40 and beautiful on 20. And before the wind messed up my wires, I did not need a tuner from 3850 all the way up to really close to almost 3975. I mean, it was just 1.5 or less the whole time. And then I switched over to 77.2, 40 meters, whole 40 meter band. It was just almost perfect. And then the 20 meter band, same thing, almost perfect on all the general portion of the sideband. It was almost perfect. I do have a tuner in line, and on 80 is pretty wide band, or pretty wide, and I do touch it up when I get down below 38. Yeah, below 3875, 3850, somewhere in there, because you could pretty much plan on your average wire dipole antenna giving you about 150 kilohertz of usable bandwidth. So 75 up, 75 down, and anything beyond that is a gift to how and a testament to how you put it together. And that's where all these subtle nuances start to play in, that you took the time to tune your resonant antenna, put a good balun in, buy good coax, cut your coax to the best length that you can physically do, and plug it in, and get your antenna as high up off the ground as you can physically at your property.
Evan,
So, yes.
why did you orient, I must have missed this, at 90 degrees, the 40 from the 80 antenna?
Oh, that was two reasons. One, because I could and it was easy. I mean, literally, I had a place to run the wires to. Another thing too is it completely separated the 80 and the 40 so they wouldn't interact with each other.
Okay.
Because if you take two long conductors, put them side by side for a very much period of time at all, they'll do something to each other.
Yeah.
So, and if you were to physically look at mine, my 20 meter is just kind of skewed weird. It's still a slightly inverted V, okay, but it's not parallel directly with any of the other wires. There's a guy on used to be on 39777.7. I can't remember his name. He's just passed away, but he used to get a piece of Lexan. He called it a maypole, and he fed it in the center, and then he had antenna dipole 1, antenna dipole 2, and what he just told everybody, and he oriented them so they were at different angles, and then he told people to, when you stretch your antenna out, try to get your 80 meter the highest you can, and then skew the other ones at a little bit different downward angle, so none of them were exactly parallel. That
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and guys, a simple resonant dipole antenna, it works good. I mean, it works so good. Now, when I'm on 20 meters and I hear a pileup from Europe, it'd be nice if I had a 3 or 4 or 5 element beam. That'd be nice, but I don't have it.
And the other thing, Kevin, if I could real quick. So,
sure.
As he ties these different antennas to the balun, just to oversimplify it for everyone out there maybe is curious, is that's the magic of the radio, of the frequency. It will find the resident antenna it needs. So
Yep.
as you have that 80 meters, as you have that 40 meters, then maybe you have that 20 meters going the other direction, it will magically find what monoband antenna you might need. And the big benefit to having all of these resident monoband antennas is that not only are you putting out maximum power, but you also are receiving it back to your radio. And, that's a big problem, is to be able to hear stations. For instance, if you ever had the opportunity to go camping and you have a very low noise floor, suddenly there's all sorts of people on the bands. And so that definitely will... how well your antenna is built will help with your hearing and as well as transmission. In other words, if you've got an antenna that's just a random wire, it's so far out of a good SWR, a nice 50 ohm impedance match, and your tuner is doing all of the work. Just imagine what you're not hearing, because that tuner is just, it's doing all the work. All the tuner is doing is tricking your radio. It is a radio matcher. It is not an antenna tuner. It is not tuning your antenna. Your antenna is still the same piece of crap. And what Kevin is kind of building here and showing us is how to have the perfect antenna. And so, best case scenario, you don't use a tuner. Otherwise, you might not be able to hear and put all that power out. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there as far as big picture, because a lot of people will talk about getting a tuner and running some wire, and then you have a multi-band, which is great, and that's good if it works for you. But Kevin, could you also talk about why you would want to use coax and why you would want to use ladder line? I know we've had Kevin in the chat. He loves his balanced line going to the antenna.
Oh, okay. Balanced line is a very low loss, very forgiving wire, and it can handle a high SWR and you can bring that down into your shack, which is a little bit more difficult. And by the way, when you're running ladder line and you're running it down, you need to be careful. You can't run it next to your gutter. You don't want it right up against your house, especially if it's stucco or a metal siding house. You got to do all this stuff to keep this ladder line happy. Okay. And then ladder line, its characteristic impedance is somewhere around, 400, 450 ohms, something like that. So when you get it down to the shack, you got to do something. And a lot of guys go, yeah, I just get a 1-to-1 balun, man, and I run into my tuner. Well, I can tell you from firsthand experience, I had a 1,000-foot loop. I fed it with 450 ohm ladder line, ran into my shack, and I bought a 4-to-1 balun, a voltage balance, not a current balance. So I learned my lesson, and I hooked it to that thing, and it worked, okay. But I had quite a bit of I had some RF in the shack and a few little issues, and I didn't really care for it. And I was experimenting. I took the a 1-to-1 current balun, and I wound it on a Type 43 core, and then I just did really simple windings, and I used THHN wire, and I used my radio and my tuner, and I made it happy, and I put 100 watts. It was fine. 200 watts. It was fine. I got to about 500 or 600 watts, and then I saw the balun was getting warm, and it started to arc. I could actually see it arcing. The insulation broke down, started arcing, because my ladder line was happy because it could handle the power, it could handle the SWR, it could handle the voltage. It didn't care. What cared was my transformer with that complex impedance and that super high voltage. And here Kevin is like, I'm going to put a kilowatt down its throat and see what it does. Will it burn up? So that's one example. The other example is you build an antenna that you know what the feed point impedance is, and you run your ladder line out there, and you put the proper matching devices, and you can run that ladder line a long ways. My friend in Idaho, he built his own ladder line. He literally made little telephone poles with insulators, and he ran number 12 wire all the way out, like a couple hundred feet at least, to his dipoles. And then he built a matching network, and he used 75 ohm line and made his own little impedance matching transformers. They weren't quarter wavelengths, but anyways, he made them, and it works beautiful. And another thing about ladder line is really cool is if you want to have a super duper 40 or 80 meter loop or beam or whatever heck it is you're doing out there in your field 300 feet from your house, and you can do it, run half wavelength multiples out there. And if you keep it at a half wave multiple at the frequency you're going to use it at, it will reflect the antenna impedance right back to your transmitter. So if your antenna is 50 ohms, at the end of this ladder line at half wavelength multiples, it'll see 50 ohms. My buddy did that, and it worked beautiful. So ladder line is great.
Let's open the floor up to people in here with questions. Does anyone here in the club have questions? Because I was thinking about dropping the Zoom link in a little bit in YouTube.
I got a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
I'm in a high noise level, and so a lot of times I can't hear stuff very well. But everybody tells me with my amplifier and everything, they hear me real well. Mm-hmm. I'm doing a lot of 80 meter work on Mars. Well, the other night, I had my transmitter on, my amplifier on standby. So instead of 1,500 watts, I only had my driver at 35 watts. and I turned it on standby because I didn't want to actually accidentally key up and bother anybody. I want to be careful. Well, when it was my turn to send data, I forgot to turn my amp on. And guess what? In Dayton, Nevada, they picked up my data transmission with my amplifier on standby. It was only at 35 watts. I thought, and I was calling. I apologized. I didn't have my full power. No problem. I got your transmission number 22. No problem. My point is that Kevin, designed this antenna that I have, with the 40 and 80 meters and the balun and the whole thing, and that thing really works. So only thing I need to do now is work on the noise issue, because I got like a S9 noise level over here a good portion of the time. But that antenna is really important. Whether you're 35 watts or a 1.5 kW, a good antenna makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Looks like Kevin's on a call right now, so we'll get to him in a second. I do want to get to some questions here in the YouTube.
That's what it was about. People have questions on YouTube.
In the YouTube, yeah.
And I was just rambling. So, and by the way, I would like to get done around 9, and my voice is starting to go anyway. So lucky for you guys.
So yeah, do you see Richard E's one question? I can read it. I can read it here. So
I already read it.
Okay. So what are your thoughts?
It's simple. Don't at that frequency, HF, don't change the cable. If you have 213 and it's cut the way you want it, don't look at the chart, or don't change it. Look at that chart that Jason put up, and you'll see the difference between the two cables is negligible at that frequency. It's not going to gain you enough to make it. There are people that are just in love with 213 and a 400 type cable, which is fine if you have it and want to use it, but don't rip your 213 or your 214 out just to put in 400 just because somebody said. Yeah, don't do that.
And the other thing I kind of want to discuss too, if you can't get a quarter wave off the ground, it's not the end of the world.
No.
I myself, I rigged up an 80 meter antenna, and it's maybe 25 feet off the ground, and I used some loading coils. So in other words, some PVC, about 28 wraps with 14 gauge stranded wire, THHN, and then I have another, I'm probably 30 some feet. But what I did is I put it up there with RG8X. I don't even have great coax, but I did get my coax cut to, I think I'm 112 feet. Kevin helped me do some of that math. And then what I did is with my insulator, I brought extra 14 gauge down through the insulator and then wrapped it back on itself. And I just spent an afternoon giving it more or less looking at an antenna analyzer, and I'm doing pretty good on 80 meters. Now, my noise floor is not that great here in middle Vacaville, suburbia, but if you can just put something up 20 to 30 feet, that's all you need, in my opinion. Your broadband, as far as how much of 80 meters will be resident, that your miles will vary. At that point, you can touch it up with the tuner. But that's what's so much fun about building HF antennas, is you just got to get out there and try to build something. And if you don't have an analyzer, reach out to us. Let some of us know. There's a couple floating around. We can definitely come over and help you with a few readings.
Yeah, I'm just reading some of the comments on there, and it's there's stuff all over the map.
Yeah, one guy, Kevin, here in the chat is talking about, what about dual coax? Tie shields together and use center conductors. So instead of a ladder line, you're kind of using the coax. Kind of a fun idea.
You can.
I know for me, coax is a win because my wife doesn't really want to see ladder line cleanly airborne up to my antenna. So I can get real sneaky with coax. I can get it, in and out of the house, in and out of the garage, And up to this, for myself, if you're not familiar, I have some rigid pipe on my chimney, and then I put a pulley up there with some parachute cord, and I simply change out my monoband antennas. And what I do is I have my antennas right here. Oh God!
You carry those in your back pocket all the time?
Yeah, right here. And so I picked up a few of these ballons. You can find them at swaps or for cheap. And then I have some markers. So right here, this is a 20-meter antenna. So here's my ballon, and I hook this up to my little pulley system, and I already have it pre-landed. And then what I have here is one of these cheap extension cord winders. And this is, 14 gauge with parachute cord and isolators. So all I do is I go out there and I spin my pulley down to the ground. I hook this up. I hook up my coax, and I send it, and it goes up, and it works. And I'm getting a phone call.
Well, I was going to answer that quick. Somebody asked about using the dual coax. Yeah, absolutely, you can. You can take, I don't know if any of you ever saw it, but the cable TV companies around here used to use a dual coax. It was 75 ohms, and it was already, hooked together. So you can take that stuff, tie the shields together, and you get approximately 150 ohm. I think it's 150 ohms, and you can use that. You can feature it. Like, it'd be great, like a loop antenna. Then input impedance somewhere between, a little over 100 ohms up to around 200 ohms. You run that up there, and then before you run into your shack, you just get yourself a little 2-to-1, 2.25-to-1 ballon, and impedance matching transformer, basically. And then you can plug it right into your system and go for it. Or you can run it to your balance tuner and do it that way too. There's a bunch of ways to do stuff, guys. We were just talking about building a monoband antennas and trying to make it easy. The reason coax is easy is because it's easy. You can drill holes, put it through it, and move it around and not worry too much about it. Just got to buy some good stuff. Anybody else got any questions?
I got a question.
Go ahead. That's Bert. Go ahead.
Hey, so down the block, probably like less than half a block, I've got those big, power towers, those wires and stuff, and they're crackling like all day, all night kind of thing. Is that going to affect my antennas at all?
It could. What you need to do is if you want to find out if there's broadband noise coming off a power pole, get a portable AM radio. Okay. Tune it off a station. So all you hear is basically the white noise. Okay. Steady. And you get a baseline of that. And you start walking around to these poles. The closer you get to the poles, if that energy just gets louder and louder and louder, guess what? You're going to hear it on your HF radio, especially at the lower frequencies. You ever been driving down the freeway, listen to AM, your favorite talk AM radio show, and you drive under some super high voltage power lines, and you hear this, it almost wipes it out. And then any of you guys ever drive, Old Lakeville Road between Highway 37 and 101 going over to Petaluma? I'm listening to my talk radio station, and it's really clear on 37. Turn off on Lakeville Road, it's really clear. As soon as I get up there somewhere about halfway, I start hearing this noise, and by the time I get into the edge of Petaluma, holy cow, it literally almost wipes out the radio. I pull away, get back on 101, it comes back in perfectly clear. So Bert, get yourself a little AM portable radio, and you can walk around your house and your neighborhood, and you can find that noise. I did it at my house. I found out I had a couple LED fixtures that really suck. I turned them off and the noise went away.
You know what I also heard works really good is I spoke to Bruce a little bit, and so if you get one of those SDR dongles, 30, $40. You get it into your laptop, and
Yep.
you build a halfway decent antenna. And Bruce has got, we've got to get his design. He's got this little mini loop he's built. But the thing about the SDR is, as you're cruising around holding your laptop with the dongle and then the antenna, is the SDR is showing you so much of the frequency, you can really see quite a lot, where when you're dealing with a handheld, you're going to need to kind of crank it and, go through that shortwave band to hear it.
Yeah, and it's just a pickup loop. It's not resonant
No?
in anything. Yeah, it's made that way, and it works great. Yeah, you can just walk around. You can look at your waterfall and look at your screen, and you can find out kind of where it's at. Turn stuff off and on, because that's the thing too, guys. If your house is full of electronics, which most of ours are, and nowadays we're getting more and more LED light bulbs, and you put in many cases, we don't have, my last house, I had no choice. I put my pole up at the end of my house on the peak of the roof, pushed it up as high as I could, and I had my ham radio, right? Guess what? It interfered with the TV that was in close proximity to that antenna, because TV was right under it, about 20 feet underneath it. And in some cases, your antenna is close or draping over your house, and it's not very high, and you can pick up stuff. So if you turn your radio on and you're hearing a bunch of what you feel like is excessive amount of hash, start turning stuff off in your house. Put your HF on a battery, turn everything off in your ham shack, and go look for the noise. Excuse me. You might be generating your own noise. My uncle found a defective wall outlet in his house one time. It wasn't burning. It wasn't that bad, but it had a teeny arc inside, and he heard it on his radios. Kind of weird, huh?
I believe I heard once it's going to cost you about $100. So you give your wife $100, and you just tell her to go shopping. And at that point, you can just start shutting off your entire house while your HF rig is on battery.
There you go. Anybody else got anything to want to? Anybody? Did we get all the questions off YouTube?
I think so. I liked Noel's idea. If you find a power pole, a utility pole that has issues, just drive your truck into it.
Yeah, just hit it.
Because realistically, filing all the proper paperwork will probably take months and years.
Yeah, why file paperwork when you just knock it down? Yeah.
You didn't hear that from us.
No. This is just a recommendation from Noel here. Noel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to look here through some of the comments. I dropped a link here for anyone that would like to join us in Zoom as we kind of get closer to the end. But yeah, I mean, the HF, to me, HF is where so much magic is. And you take some of these calculations that Kevin went over tonight, and you just start getting stuff in the air. I mean, initially, I started putting stuff in the tree because my wife wasn't overly crazy about, stuff hanging off the house. But the tree was tough. The tree was moist. It was dry. It moved in the wind. And so ultimately, getting it off of the chimney was a much better solution, especially because it's in the center of my yard. And, if you do some kind of pulley system, you can have a lot of fun with experiments. Or even, let's say, if you're in a HOA, if you've got a pulley system, you could easily bring it down during the week when you go to work. And then, put it up for contest weekends and that kind of thing.
I had a really good comment, and then my brain went dead, so sorry. Sorry about that. I actually am whipping something together here. I want to show you guys something and see if you can see this. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I go, yeah, there was a lot of different comments on different coaxes and cables and stuff. And, you know, you hit it, Jason. Put the thing up and play with it. You know, I mean, that's half the battle. And the stuff that we talked about tonight, some of the stuff, yeah, it's a little bit picky. It's a little extra mile. But, you know, when I had my original antenna up, it was an old B&W brand center. Just it literally had 2 eye hooks and a plug thing on the bottom, and I had the ugly Ballon, so on and so forth. Then I switched over to another Ballon that I made and put that up there, and it worked pretty good. And then I decided, no, I'm gonna go the full deal here. So what I did is I built a really nice 1-to-1 current Ballon and measured it. Was happy with the results. I cut my coax. I had a piece of 9913, excuse me, LMR 400 type cable, the flex kind, where it was real flexible. And I cut it to the half wavelength, hooked everything up, hooked it up to my receiver, and I literally had a aha moment. I went, wow, I can hear better. I mean, it was unbelievable. I went from, I had an okay antenna, and I just cleaned everything up. I didn't do anything fancy. I just cleaned it up. What I do want to show you guys is this little, don't think I did this before. Can you guys see the MFJ?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure. Okay. Is that, can you see the numbers?
Tilt it forward a little bit more.
Like that?
A little bit more. Almost. Yeah, that's pretty good. Maybe just set it down. Set it down so you don't touch it. Can you do that?
Yeah. How's that? Should I lift it up like this?
Yeah, that would help. Just because with the contrast of the screen.
Yeah. Is that better there? Is it close? You can see it's at one point.
Yeah, it's
Can
close.
you guys see the meter?
Yeah.
SWR. See, notice the SWR meter is at 0. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Notice that the X of S, the reactance is 0, and the resistance is 49. So that's what it's telling. It's telling me that my homemade dummy load at that frequency. Now, keep in mind, this is what we're calling our perfect antenna. Now we're going to move it up the frequency to 80 meters. We're going to go to that test frequency of 3.8, and I swept it. I don't know if anybody noticed, but the SWR meter didn't move. The reactance is at 0, and we're at 1-to-1. We're still 49 ohms. So that's a pretty good. Well, how about this? Let's go to 40 meters. Gee, it's 7.2. Nothing changed. It's still the same.
You found the perfect antenna.
It's a perfect antenna. My point about this is not that this is such a, well, look at that. We're at 18 megahertz. It didn't change. So 20 megahertz. So let's see when it changes. Right there. I'm at 48 ohms, and I got 2 ohms of reactance at 44. That's still pretty dang good. So if I get up to 50 megahertz, I'm still at 48. So I could reliably use this thing. There, 1.1. I'm knocking on the door of 70 megahertz. So if I stay in that 30 megahertz range, that's a really good test. So now, if I wanted to, and if anybody wants to see it, we can unplug it, and now you can insert your test coax in here, right? With this, and then this will tell you what the effect the coax has on your perfect antenna. So, anyways, I thought I had a piece of RG8X, the stuff that's weird laying right here. I don't know. Do I?
And I will say, if this is something, I've got to adjust my my YouTube feed here. Buying one of these antenna analyzers, used is $100, $150. New, you're going to be over that $200-$300 mark. MFJ, Comet makes one. There's, of course, the new V&A stuff. That I think is going to be the biggest thing you could do to this hobby is get yourself the ability to read what your antenna's doing, especially when building HF. So that was a huge game changer for me anyways.
Yeah, I got a piece of, here it is. It's not making, I got a piece of this stuff and it's got a crappy connector on it. Oh, well. There it is. Oh, that's cool.
Well, Kevin, I'm going to give you
Yeah.
about
You know what?
10 minutes to finish up what you want to
No,
say,
I'm
and I don't
done.
want to hold people.
I'm done. But here's a good example. Can you guys see the SWR meter? Right there. So I'm at about, if I pull it down and I peek and there. So this piece is half wavelength multiple and it's happy at 5.6. Well, let's move it down lower in frequency. Oh, it's creeping up. There's 4 megahertz. It's 1.2. And if I go any lower, now I'm up to about almost 1.3. And that's a pretty decent piece of coax. So as you sweep it through, you can watch it go up. There we are. There's 1.2. There's 58 ohms. So this is the better piece. This is the higher quality piece. This is from Cable Experts. And I have the cheaper one is like twice this bad. It gets up to 1.5, 1.6. But as you can see, even with this meter, you can turn the knob and find the half wavelength point. So that's at 5.3. Well, let's say I want to operate on 40 meters. So I get up to 7.2, really close to 7.2. So my coax right here is introducing about a 1.1 to 1.2 SWR, which this piece that's not bad at all. The other piece is really bad. So, but that's the point. I'll have to get a really bad piece of coax and show you guys next time.
Yeah. Now, real quick, could you gracefully explain why do you want an antenna at half wavelength?
Because you can easily a dipole, you can feed it in the middle, and you can easily get a 50 ohm match. But if you do a half wavelength antenna and you end like an end fed half wavelength, it's the impedance is super high. Then another reason is you've got if you look at that picture we drew earlier,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good substantial portion of the wavelength. You're getting a lot of energy out in the air, and it's not canceling each other.
And
you know what? That's a complicated question.
And you wanted
Bruce answer that.
You wanted a quarter wave off the ground, right? That's best.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
best scenario.
Yeah.
The antenna is a full half wave, so you have two ends, a quarter and a
Yep.
quarter,
Yep.
and then it's off the ground by a quarter.
At least, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that
Yep.
so there was a question I just wanted to kind of clarify,
Yeah, the reason
reiterate.
you want a quarter wavelength, we drew that little picture earlier where the quarter wavelength is I don't even know where I put it. Oh, here it is. So if you physically, this is how many feet you'd want it to be, because the half wavelength, it's physically 125 feet. So physically a quarter wavelength is half of that, right?
Mhm.
So you'd want it at least half of that that length off the ground, quarter wavelength, so that when the cycle is up here at its peak, so it's going like this and coming back down, going like that. It's not too close to ground. I'm trying to just say you don't want the ground conductivity or your the ground to interfere with your antenna. It's just kind of like you don't want to take a big old long piece of wire and get it coupled into your antenna. Well, the earth is a pretty big object, so you wanted to get away from that so it doesn't affect your antenna either.
Yeah.
You could actually see that. You guys could build, you know what you could do? You could build a small, like a 20-meter dipole and put it on a pole, a modest pole, and you could literally get it up there, get it tuned, and get it looking all perfect, and then lower the thing down and see what it does.
Well, shoot, Kevin, for that matter, I, with my 80 meters and I'm running these loading coils and I'm not that far off the ground, I'm definitely not a quarter wave off the ground, I can see the difference when my sprinklers go off in my backyard because the earth is getting wet.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, yeah.
Did we get all the questions off the chat?
I think so, yeah. If not, I'll just send all the emails to you.
Oh yeah. But by the way, everybody, no, we didn't make up any of this stuff. This stuff is all in the amateur radio handbook. It's in your there's guys on YouTube that show similar things. Just be careful who you watch because some of them are really, really good. Some of them not so good. But the books, the ARRL antenna compendium, there's 2 or 3 versions of it. The handbook, there's a ham radio antenna handbooks that aren't ARRL related. There's other ones out there. And, it's just a good thing to research it yourself. Get one of these books and experiment with it because it's fun. And if you can't, I think Jason really made a good point. For making your own antennas and your own balance and things of that nature, it's really, really almost a necessity to have some kind of a antenna or a device analyzer. And if all you can afford is the little nano VNA, that's okay. That thing is amazingly accurate for the money.
Yeah.
It really is.
So Kevin, I got one last question for the night. What if you go past the quarter wave height? How high can you make a dipole?
I have been told over the years, and I don't have anything to back this up, so maybe we can research it. A quarter wavelength is what you want, and there's a point to which it's diminishing returns, and I don't remember what that is.
So there is a little magic to the quarter wave, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's the minimum.
Okay.
And you get it up in the air, like you take your 20-meter antenna and you get it up off the ground, between a quarter wavelength and maybe even a half wavelength off ground, so it's not interfering. And then you go, well, gee, man, I'm going to put the thing up there, an extra 80 feet. On dipoles, I don't know how much better it would be as long as you're in the clear. I mean, if you were in some area where there's buildings and terrain was an issue and you needed to get it up above that, that's one situation. Other situations, like where I happen to live, my antenna, my pole is 55 feet tall and my pulley is about 53 feet, I guess, something like that.
Did you want to go to your face?
I don't, not really.
Okay.
But we can guide. My antenna pole is 50 feet or 55 feet, and my pulley is about 52 feet, and that's where my feed point is at for all the antennas, and it works great. Now, if I could lift it, if I could get it up to like 70 feet to be more in lines with the 80 meter, that would be great. But I don't have a definitive answer for y'all if that's going to make my 20 meter actually work any better. Because when the band is decent and I'm running 100 watts or 200 watts, I mean, man, they hear me in Japan and Hawaii and the East Coast like no problem. So if I doubled the height, I'm not convinced that my 20 meter dipole would do any better.
Right. And I think, I would stick to that quarter wave plus or minus, a handful of feet, if you will, because when you're dealing with HF is not the same as your VHF, UHF, where when you hear about VHF, UHF, height is might. the higher you can get, whether you're on a mountaintop or getting your antenna, the better you will get out. That's not necessarily the case with HF, because what's going on with HF is you're kind of looking for that bounce or that skip. And one great example I have is I put up an inverted V 20 feet off the ground in Death Valley. I was doing some camping. I had 100 watts in a wire, and I was getting Japan on 20 meters in the afternoon like I was talking on a repeater. It was coming in great. And if you're familiar with Death Valley, you're below 200 feet sea elevation. So I was nowhere near being high in elevation as far as the antenna, but I had an antenna high enough to where it was working, it was resident. And so HF can be funny like that. You don't necessarily need to be on top of the mountain for HF. So,
well, but one more thing you guys can look up. I am definitely not an expert on this, but different antennas have different takeoff angles. So if you're looking at your antenna, let's say it's a vertical, and depending on how it's made, your takeoff angle might be, you figure out this lobe is 10 degrees or it's 20 degrees or whatever. So if you get a decent takeoff angle, it takes off and it's going like that over the horizon to get to where you want to be, versus all your energy just going up in the sky, just becoming a cloud warmer. Mm-hmm. And then there's a same thing with beams. You'll look it up and they'll tell you what the gain is, the takeoff angle, and the how many degrees the lobe is. I mean, that antenna theory can get pretty complicated. We're not going there. We're doing a dipole so we can play HF.
That's it. Well, yeah. All right, Kevin, very good. I think we'll stick a fork in it. What do you think?
I'm ready. I want someone to stick a fork in me and let me go to bed. Yeah.
Okay.
A long day.
Well, everyone, does anyone here in Zoom have one last final thought or question for anybody?
I got one more question.
Yeah, go ahead, Bert.
Would it be better as a horizontal dipole or the inverted V? Or what angle would the inverted V be?
I didn't hear you. What angle you want this thing at?
What is better?
Oh, well, the inverted V, if you look it up in the book, but if it's straight across, the feed point impedance will be in the neighborhood of 70 ohms, 75 ohms. And as you lower it down a little bit to where it's somewhere between 90 and about 45 degrees, somewhere in there, it levels off. It gets closer to 50 ohms. And then of course, your ends, because your antenna, your dipole would radiate. Here's the wire, would radiate like this, right, all the way around, and then these radiation would go up this way. Well, if you angle it, theoretically, these end lobes will be at a better angle, but it's more about the feed point. Well, I don't know if it's more about it, but you droop the ends a little bit, put your feed point impedance closer to 52 ohms. That's another thing too. You build this thing, and there's so many variables. That's why you do your best to get as close as you can, because if you leave something out and you made a gross mistake, it messes everything else up. So, yeah, inverted V is closer to 50 ohm. A flat top is closer to 70 something. I don't remember exactly.
Well, good stuff, Kevin.
That's it, man. Unless someone's got another. All questions are real. So if anybody has one more real question, that's okay. Otherwise, it's going to be nighty night.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. I'll end Zoom. Thank you very much for putting this on and doing those calculations for us.
No problem.
Thanks a lot. It was really great.
Good night, all.
Good night, everyone. Guys. Good night.
Hope everybody enjoyed it.
I'll tell Jim in the chat, if you've got HF in the shack, you want to look at ferrite beads or toroids. And I'll drop a link.
That's funny.
I'll drop a link here in the chat.
Stop transmitting.
Yes, stop transmitting. I'll drop a link for you, Jim. But at this point, I'm going to end it all. And thank you, everyone. hopefully, maybe November we'll meet in person. I know we keep saying that, but gosh darn it.
Hey, we're gonna try.
I'm optimistic.
We're at 25%, and they're letting 25% in, right? 25% capacity of the building is technically what they're talking about. Okay, so I've been working on the club Christmas dinner.
Yeah,
and I can't get a definitive answer from anybody because they don't know what the rules are going to be at that time. They just don't know.
we're just gonna have it at your house.
Yeah, we may have to do something like that. You know?
Good old barbecue hoedown.
Yep. Okay, guys.
Yeehaw.
Yeah.
All righty, guys. Well, good night. We'll see you guys next month, or every Wednesday we're hanging out here doing the Zoom thing as well. So we'll catch you next time.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Kevin.
Bye, guys.
You're
7-3.
welcome. Bye.